Hello, hello. Welcome back to another 343 TV stream. See some very familiar faces in the chat. So we got Simple Sam, Calico, hello. John, hello. How we all doing? Silent State I saw earlier. What's up, what's up? Welcome back. As I said before, I'm here with your boy Icarus Moth. As always, we're going to do a genre breakdown today, kind of like the old days. Ooh, I'm clipping, aren't I? Look at that. Let me fix that. Looking at OBS right now. All right, that should be fine. So yeah, today's gonna be a little different. I am gonna pull open a track I've created before. We're gonna be breaking down a piece of music, not the one that we were listening to just now, but something. However, because we do have Black Friday around the corner, pardon the mic, crunch. We do have Black Friday around the corner. I want to talk about some software stuff because we do have a lot of things going on sale right now. The world of plugins, the world of VSTs is gigantic. It's massive. There's so many choices. Some of these tools are on sale all the time. Some of these tools never go on sale. And it's sometimes like a little overwhelming to try and decide what's worth it and what you want. And I'll tell you right now, there's not necessarily a right answer to that sort of question. However, I'm going to be showing you guys what I like to use and some of the deals that I think are pretty important. And we're going to dive through a piece of music I've created to try and demonstrate such a thing. So as always, if I have any issues with my audio, anything going on, my OBS buttons aren't working as always, please feel free to let me know in the chat. I got you guys over here, always with you. Wow. It's like we got some more people. Synth Tanked, what's up? What's up? Carrie, hey, good to see you as always. Unknown Zerch, yo, first time seeing you. All right, cool. Hi, John. All right, so let me play this piece of music for you because I have a bad habit of not playing music very soon into my streams. But before I do that, let me talk to you a little more. We do have a giveaway going on. I'll mention this a little bit later, and I'm sure Thomas343 Labs will be posting links in the chat. But again, this week is a pro session, if I have that correct, which is one of our ticketed events where we have just kind of somebody come in and do like a masterclass essentially. So those can be really great. Of your choice means you can get to pick one that is kind of, in line with what you're doing. And so I recommend joining our sweepstakes. All right, so let me play this piece of music for you. This is out, so if you want to, go and listen to this song, it's on my Spotify account. This is with a collaborator, Wit Blue. So she's the one on the vocals, did a lovely job for us. And we're going to be kind of going through some of these instruments. I'm not really going to be breaking down the production here. I'm mostly going to be talking about some of the tools I used. And then we're going to be maybe going through some of my VSTs that I didn't use in the track to kind of talk about what I like. I'll do my best to mention what sales are actually happening right now, but I'm also not 100% sure. So I'll mention the ones I'm familiar with, but all right, without further ado, let's listen to some music.
I got the perfect outfit, but I don't plan to wear it unless you're gonna tear it right off my body and bury it. Sometimes we might get upset and say some things we regret, but if you come and get it, we can make the fight worth it. I know I get an attitude, but when we make you call it cute, just let me take it out on you till I got nothing left to prove but gratitude. I got the perfect outfit, but I don't plan to wear it unless you're gonna tear it right off my body and bury Waking up ain't hard to do. The second I'm in front of you, feuding puts me in the mood, and I wonder if you like it. I got the perfect outfit, but I don't plan to wear it unless you're gonna tear it right off my body, bury it. Sometimes we make it upset and say some things we regret, but if you come and get it, we can make the fighting worth it. 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 We can make it.
Yeah, so there we go. Looks like we've got Danica joining us. Good to see you again. Good to see you again. Yeah, fire is a colloquialism, new terminology for sick, right? If anything that's like kind of means bad, if you say it like that, it means really good, right? That's kind of, it's the weird world we live in now. So yeah, that was a really fun piece for me to put together. I was in LA at the time, kind of doing some collaborative sessions. Whipley reached out to me. We were able to meet up at a studio, and this was kind of the writing session that, ensued. Not much was added after the fact. Sometimes when, your inspirations align, the session can go really well and you can knock out a lot in the moment. I then took it home, made some tweaks to the instruments, and she went and recorded final vocals with someone she records with, and sent me these lovely vocal stacks that ended up being pretty much perfect for the track. So this one came together very well. I do believe that what we just listened to is maybe missing some tools. This is one of the engineering projects I had, and I think I've used this for maybe classes in the past. So it might not sound quite like it does on Spotify, but if you enjoy the song, I appreciate the save in the Spotify. All right, so let's take a look at some of what's going on here in my strange organization. I added a couple of things after the fact that I didn't really end up organizing, so let's group this stuff and call it, I don't know, perks. And if we browse through some of these tracks, we can see I got a sidechain here. We have a kick drum. All my stuff is flattened into audio. This was so that when I was mixing, I didn't really have an insane amount of plugins to contend with, and I wasn't pushing my CPU. You can see the combination of things I'm doing here. I got OBS. I got, just streaming to YouTube. I got the internet open. I don't think I need that. Let's get rid of that. And Ableton running with an engineering project, and that was hovering around 70%, although Chrome was eating that up, so I think I just fixed that. But yeah, when we freeze and flatten stuff, or at least bounce it to stems, regardless of what you prefer, it's going to give us the opportunity to go back in with a fresh slate. We don't necessarily get too stuck in the weeds going back and changing some of the production we made. So we're not necessarily going to get to see some of the plugins I used, but I'm going to go back and kind of talk about some of the ones that I did use during the processing. We'll take a look at them and see how I might have used them. However, on the group, we do see some that I'm using here. Now, one thing I want to note before we start going through some of my plugins list and start getting into some of the the meat of these different devices. Look at these EQs, the different devices I like to use. I want to note that I am a proponent of universal audio. I have one of their units. I have all of the different tools that come along with it, like the analog model tools that come along with it. I've grown very accustomed to them and familiar with them, and so I do incorporate a lot of that in my process. Now I'm actually going to try and avoid talking about as much of the UAD stuff as I can, just because it's a little bit harder for people to access, right? You need to have one of the UAD audio interfaces, which means if you have an interface of your own already, you might not want to see that go. And also the tools, the plugins that you can add to the Apollo unit that it runs off of DSP itself, they're not cheap. And so they're not necessarily fully accessible for everybody. Now, with that said, Universal Audio teams up with other product companies and hosts their VSTs and programs on their suite. And so some of the things I use from UAD, you can go and purchase directly from the people who make it, and not just, being stuck through UAD. So some of these will slip in here, and I will mention when something is UAD specific and when it's not. But that's just something to note. It's one of those instances where you need one of their devices in order to access those tools, because they're not using your computer's CPU to hang, right? So let's do a quick track breakdown. We got our R&B drums here, right? This is pretty much an R&B track, a little bit future, but still very much borrowing from that genre. I mean, the song's about sex. You might have caught that. And so, you know, got some like nice, clean sort of hip hop drums. My snare kind of resembles like a rim shot or acrostic more so than like a direct membrane impact, which is very common for that genre. Got some kind of like trappy hi-hats, which is just pop music these days. We have our 808 here, which you might see me doing something kind of interesting with. This is 2 layers, but they're doing the same thing, just covering different frequencies, right? So we have our main low end, and then we have this layer here, which I'm pretty sure works through YouTube. I think we're hearing stereo audio right now. But what you might notice is this is not mono. This is a pretty wide signal. But if we look at the track itself, it's a very small amount of frequencies I'm allowing to come through. And so the mids for this bass essentially are widened, which causes the bass to cut through the mix a little bit more easily. It doesn't get covered up, or at least it doesn't blend into some of the other instruments in the mids nearly as much. It kind of stands out and is its own thing. This track is also kind of accounting for some of the grit in the 808 here. Sometimes I'll do this all on the same track via a chain. And so the way that would look is maybe we use, you're introducing our first tool, maybe we use a J37 tape emulator from Waves. This is their Abbey Road's tape emulator tool. And I gotta make this smaller. I can't. I know it might be helpful, but it looks too weird. And maybe I'm going to use this to add some stereo wideness and saturation to my bass. However, you don't want to necessarily just take a sub and, you know, do some stereo widening via delaying one of the right or the left signals, because you get phase cancellation, right? We could really run into some issues maintaining the oomph and the power of our low end that way. And so in that instance, what you might want to do is group this into a chain and split the audio apart, so that what this version of the audio is handling is the wide, higher, like mid frequencies, and then the empty chain here with no processing can handle that sub and the low frequencies that otherwise you might be struggling with here. And so if I wanted to use the J37 tool here to create kind of this extra layer, which is honestly probably what I used in this track to do this, what we would want to do is, you know, play around with our modeling options here, maybe pick a different formula that we like the sound of. I know 815 is pretty warm, so I'm just going to leave it there. Pick a bias. If we're trying to add a lot of extra distortion, we might go higher here while we increase our saturation, or if we're looking to keep it kind of clean, maybe we stay on the default option here. Something says, yeah, I have some trouble with 808s clashing with bass. I mean, 808 is bass, and so if you have an 808 track and a bass line all kind of together, it's going to be real tough to get those to play nicely. If you're doing a call and response, so that maybe 808 hits, bass fills in the space to play, and then goes back, 808 hits, bass fills into, comes in to fill the space, that works, because then you don't actually have direct overlap between those two instruments. But we really don't like the sound of harmonies in the low frequencies, right? I can't play a chord on a bass instrument. It just sounds like grrr, like mud, right? And so anything that covers that frequency range is at risk to fight any bass instruments we have, whether that's our kick drum, our 808, our bass line, depending on what genre of music we're doing. Drummers and bassists in the actual wild are the same. Yeah, they have a very special relationship, right? Because in more like, you know, live stage context, the bass and the drummer have a very, very important relationship. You know, like that kick drum and the pop of an actual low bass string create a beautiful sound together, right? The sub from the bass guitar kind of fills in the rest of the space from that kick drum, and it creates a very lovely feeling. So, yeah. Anyway, moving on. We're going to add a little bit of saturation. You'll notice there's not really a dry wet on things like tape machines. And so you balance the amount of coloring you're getting from this tool via your input and output balance, which is why they're often linked. So when I go up on my input, it goes down on the output and vice versa. And so, you know, we could get maybe a little bit more from this just by increasing our input here, which just drives the tool even further. But what I want to do is make this wide, right? And that's what we're going to, do is use our delay feature over here on the right to make that happen. So down here where we have our delay options, there's a couple things I want to do. One, I want to maybe engage our high pass filter so that I'm cutting out sub frequencies from this version of our bass. Remember, we split it into chains, so there are two different things going on here. Sub rolls off around 100 or so, depending. So we'll leave that there, and then we're going to want to switch our delay type around. So I'm going to choose ping pong. which is going to kind of force one of these to function as left, one of these to function as right, and then we're going to switch this to send and return, which means that this delay, now kind of like putting a regular Ableton delay on the track at 100% wet, is going to kind of take over, you know, the position of the sound. So if I unlink these and minimize these down to 1 millisecond, we've now essentially delayed the left and the right signal by the same amount. I want to imbalance these, and somewhere around, you know, 10 or so, you have realistically up to about 20 milliseconds before it doesn't give you the effect you're looking for anymore. This is called the Haas effect, right? And so what we've achieved here, let me solo this track. Looks like we got Max on the track. What's up, Max? From this, we have the original clean sample. And then this version, we have a nice saturated higher frequency section. So let's take a look at these chains on the EQ. We can see, because of our, you know, high pass filter engaged here, we don't have nearly as much sub going on here. And now I'm even going to take this a step further and get rid of it entirely, because I really don't want that fighting with my actual sub frequencies down here, which if we take a look at on an EQ are much stronger. So now all together, so without, and then with, sounds way larger, right? It fills the space. It has a lot more frequencies. This is also going to help this sound come out across, you know, a variety of different speakers and things. And so, yeah, we can use these types of tools for a lot, and they can do a really good job. So that's kind of a combination of using a delay as a Haas effect and using a tape saturator to get a little bit more grit out of our signal. There are a few different tape saturators that are popular out there. If you are a proponent of UAD, I like the Studer 800. This is something you would commonly see in studios these days. And yeah, it's just a really nice tape model. They also have the oxide option from UAD, but there's tons and tons of options. Waves has a variety of them. The Aphex Twin is a really solid exciter, kind of functions like a tape machine. So yeah, those are all some choices you have there. And then whatever you'd like to use to create stereo wideness is entirely up to you. That one doesn't matter as much, unless maybe you have like a fancy tool that has, you know, phase consideration. So that's what's going on with our bass. That was it's kind of a longer explanation than I meant. And then we have our piano here. Heavy sidechain because hip hop. That's just playing some nice kind of sevenths and ninths. And on this tool, again, because this is all frozen, so I did have some saturation and compression going on here, but right now I just have this big old Abbey Road saturator from Waves. It's a variety of things. You know, we have a pre-EQ, a post-EQ, we have a saturator with some options, and we have a compressor with some options. So I don't actually use this very often, and I'm not going to talk too much about it just because I don't know it like the back of my hand, like some of these other tools, but it's a recent saturator I've been liking the sound of, especially for less EDM stuff. So maybe take a look at that. That one comes from Waves. By the way, I haven't said this yet, but the Waves stuff is always on sale, right? I don't think you need Black Friday to find a sale at that store. So they do have some special tools currently on sale for Black Friday. I would look at their bundles. That's where you get the best value. And there are some Waves tools that I think are incredibly useful, but obviously they have like so many, so many plugins, a lot of which do about the same thing. All right, so under here we have, I don't know, more synth stuff. This is our little like piano synth layer doing the 8th note pops. And this seems to still have some stuff on the track that I like to use. So Trash 2 right here, this is a multi-tool from iZotope. This is something that's been around from iZotope for a very long time, and they haven't really done much to it since they released the update of convolution filters. And there's a good reason for that. It's because it's just really good. They don't need to do anything at all to this tool. It's by far my favorite saturator to use, just as like a general scale. You know, I have a variety of saturators for different purposes, but if I was meant to get rid of all of them except for one, this would absolutely be the one that I choose for a variety of reasons. We can use this in multi-band mode, which I almost always do, up to 4 bands. And we have an incredible amount of wave shaping options here in the folders to choose from. For normal saturation stuff, the stuff under saturate makes a little bit more sense. You're going to get a lot of artifacts and distortion from some of these other folders without even driving it. So, just be wary. But especially for EDM and like heavier distorted sounds, these are endless amounts of options for how you can kind of tweak this. And then we have a lot of balancing options, right? So we can drive the input or reduce the input to get different styles of saturation. We can drive the wave shaper, we can reduce the wave shaper, and then we have a mix over here on the right to kind of really balance and find the sweet spot for this. I have a hardware analog filter that I'm excited to use for saturation now. Yeah, any hardware saturation is going to give you a different result than digital saturation for sure. I'd be curious to hear what you think about that difference. So this tool also comes with a couple of other things I almost never use, but they're there to help your chain if you want this. Because obviously when you're using a saturator, having filters before and after can be really handy. So they give you both of those. If we do want to change the order of these, we can pull open our graph and rearrange this, but I don't find myself needing to do that very often. So we have EQ-A, multiband saturator, EQ-B, and then this convolve option is kind of another sort of multi-effect. If I turn this on and I were to adjust the separate knob, it's going to just do that stereo separation technique that comes from like a delay tool, that Haas effect, right? It's going to take the right signal, delay it a little bit, or take the left signal, delay it a little bit, depending on how far you stretch this. And then we also have a width slider, kind of like the stereo knob in our utility tool. But over here on the left, we have convolution filters. And for those of you who have heard about or used a convolution reverb before, you might understand what these are. Essentially, an impulse response is taken, like a recording of a space, like a physical space, and then an algorithm is used to model the sound of that space as an effect, as a post-processing effect. Now, it's like a very abridged definition of what this does, but it's a good explanation. So you can see we have some options here. We have amps, if I want my sound to kind of feel like it's coming through an amp. I have a variety of different choices. When not associated with other like guitar stuff, it kind of just sounds like a lo-fi effect, but we also have some really creative ones. Like the tail is going to add actual kind of strange artifacts to the end. We're getting an issue with this one. I don't know what's going on there, but yeah, it's really, really cool. You can add a lot of really interesting textures to your sound, and we have a mix. So we can also use this to really kind of help just clean up a signal like via phasing internally or whatever you want to do with this. We then have a multiband dynamics tool. There's a million of these. I don't really use this one, but I'm sure it's just as good as the other iZotope ones. And then like a tape style delay tool that gives us some different modes here. So this is a really fantastic multi-tool, but honestly, even if it was only this trash option right here and none of the other bits, I'd still throw all my money at this thing. Like I love it so much. Deserted Island plugin choice number one for sure. And then that leads us to the next tool, which is Little Plate, which is not really a tool. It's part of a series of tools from Soundtoys. Soundtoys has been around for a while as well. These tools have been out for a very long time. They've received very little edits or updates because, again, kind of similar to like iZotope's trash, they're just really good. They just do a very good job. They don't really need to make these updates. Everyone very much has these. And this one is very much on sale right now for Black Friday. I'm sorry, I should have mentioned the sale for the iZotope stuff as well. They have a massive bundle sale. I think their $2,500 bundle goes down to $150. You heard me. So give that a look. Definitely comes with trash, among other things from engineering. But the Soundtoys bundle is also 50% off. So it goes from like $5 to like $230 or something like that. And the Soundtoys bundle is one of those sets of tools that almost everybody has them. A lot of people use them. Some people don't, but it's almost nice to have them just for collaborative purposes. If you're working with other producers, they might be using these and you might want to send the project back and forth. They're just really, really common to see. And they're also really fantastic. I don't know if anyone, in our chat won the crystallizer, but I think they can attest that they do some really, really fantastic things and they sound really great. One of my favorites from these guys, they're all kind of my favorites, but one of my main favorites is the Echo Boy, for a reason you might not expect. Something kind of similar to this Haas effect situation we were looking at before. I'm just going to put this on our original piano up here. So what we can do with this guy is kind of minimize the actual, delay feature here. So I'm going to go mix 100%. We're going to switch our echo time to milliseconds instead of synced, and we're going to reduce this down to 0. So essentially, with feedback down, echo time down, mix all the way up, this is just our normal sound. Like, we've essentially done nothing. There it is. However, there's a little style feature down here, and that style feature is applying a change to my sound. And if I click on this menu, there's a large variety of styles to choose from. And we also have a saturator and an input-output adjustment, right? And so I can really take this sound and give it a unique texture just via this. I'm not using this echo for the echo at all. So that's with, and then without. It's much tinier, much brighter. Much less body. With again. Is really beautiful. Like the coloring options from this thing, especially if you don't want to drown yourself in like analog modeled compressors. Like you could get 500 VSTs that are all just different analog modeled compressors that have pretty much the same algorithm sub the coloring, right? They all are going to slightly apply a different color to your sound. If you don't want to pull your hair out just drowning in those, getting something like this that has a variety of options that are labeled quite well based on what we should expect them to sound like can really help out. And this is not the only Soundtoys tool that functions like this. If we look at the Phase Mistress, which is their fantastic phaser tool, and we open up our menus here, we got Tweak and Style Edit. Style Edit, you look at all the different phaser choices you have. These are all kind of modeling phasers you would find in analog studios or guitar pedals or just a variety of popular phasers that we've heard and used in the past. So it's an incredible multi-tool. I think a lot of people don't necessarily realize how much more there is to these plugins with the little buttons here. But yeah, definitely take a look at the Soundtoys bundle. Highly recommend. All right, where were we at? Over here. Let's see, is there anything else notable here? So this Summit is a compressor saturator from Softtube and UAD. I used to use this a lot. It's cool. I like it. I think you'd probably get a better effect from the analog version of this one. Some of the Softtube models are like really on point, and some of them are just kind of like okay. So I don't know how I feel about that these days. And then here we have my mastering saturator to add like a little layer of shine to everything at the very end here, because we're not really seeing the original plugins I used here. Got our pads, again, a lot of the same stuff. Our reverb, saturator, EQs, trash, saw trash again. Sound effects, saturator, EQ. You might catch another trash in here. So vocals though, now this might be a little different. It does look like I froze these though. Yeah, unfortunately. All right, we're gonna talk about some vocal plugins here real quick. I was a little bit afraid of how much was gonna be frozen and flattened in this project, but we still have plenty to talk about. So let me play these vocals by themselves real quick. Let me kill the, I don't even have a sidechain. Cool.
I got the perfect outfit, but I don't plan to wear it unless you're gonna tear it right off my bottom barrier. Sometimes we might get upset and say some things we regret.
So one, you can see I was pretty subtle with the compression. There's still like a lot of dynamics in these vocals, and that's because I wanted them to sound quite dry in the beginning. But when we do get later on and we have some stacks,
I got the perfect outfit, but I don't plan to wear it unless you're gonna tear it right off my bottom barrier. Sometimes we might get upset and say some things we regret, but if you come back.
Danica says, I'm pleasantly surprised to see things in UIs are actual buttons. Yeah, except when they do it like this. Look at this thing. So remember my the tape saturator I said I loved so much? So this is what it usually looks like, right? This is what we get. Look at this little open button. Look at this thing. I don't even know if my zoom works, but like, look at how small and grayed out this is. I did not know this was here. I saw a graphic of this tool like this, and I was like, how? How do I get to this panel? Show me. And I started like scouring it, and it actually took me probably 5 minutes of staring at this to be like, there's an open button. So yeah, some of them could maybe do it a little better. But you love to find it when you do. Okay, sorry, back to these vocals. So one of the reasons why I left these a little bit extra dynamic here is because I do have just more compression coming from later on in the chains, right? So one thing to note that we see here is a lot of de-essing. This is just to catch the last little, pops and frequencies that were a little too harsh, This is controlling plosives, right? So when you maybe got a little too close to the mic, or you got too much resonance in there, it's going to kind of help balance this out. I use de-essers kind of like compressors, right? I mean, they are kind of like compressors in the end anyway, right? But this one is amazing, Alloy 2, and I am so sorry that I don't think any of you can get this if you don't already have it. You can probably go down the rabbit hole of trying to find like a legacy download and getting that to work, but they don't offer this on their website anymore. This is iZotope as well. This is evolved into Neutron. Yeah, this is evolved into Neutron. I do not like Neutron nearly as much as I like Alloy. I think Alloy was the superior tool. I really think they made huge mistakes transferring their company over to like super user friendliness. iZotope was always kind of regarded as some of the better in the box engineering tools, and I'm unfortunately going to say that I don't really think that that's the case anymore. Now, some of their legacy stuff like Alloy and Trash, still fantastic. Ozone, still a really solid maximizer, but I personally am not the biggest fan of the other things that they're doing right now. Neutron, Nectar, I don't really like them. I think they're too user-friendly, and they're also trying to get into their AI, I'll mix and master your song for you, but it's a robot. Robots don't make good decisions. Come on. Sweet rule of 456. Yeah, right. It's not fair if you were born a million years later. All right, sorry. I'm getting distracted here. So, I'm using these de-essers kind of like compressors. This Alloy tool also is a multi-tool, just like the rest of them, coming with just a bunch of mixing stuff, including a transient shaper, which is lovely. But this is one I want to note because this is a UAD tool for me. However, SPL sells their own stuff on their own company or on their own website, right? This is a harmonic exciter, and I might be like a little bit, incorrect in that assessment, but it uses a tube style algorithm, tube style processing to add harmonics to your sound. It's a little bit weird looking because RX is dope. I didn't mean to leave that one out. I do forget to mention RX sometimes just because it's very niche. Like if you're doing a lot of recording, dirty recording, then that's amazing. And cleaning up clicky sidechain stuff like that is fantastic for, but it's very niche stuff. You don't necessarily need it for all occasions. So this SPL Vitalizer is honestly, it's one of those tools where I think they originally created this for vocals to help kind of boost the resonance and the brightness of a voice, but people very quickly learned that putting this on other things, it sounds fantastic. It sounds great. So you'll catch me using these on my master sometimes, for better or for worse. But essentially what we're looking at is the far left over here is our bass saturation. So it's, harmonic saturation focused on the bass. We do have a compressor here that I am using, which is why I left some of these vocals a little extra dynamic, because I knew I'd be running them through another compressor later. And then the right side of this is a stereo expander and the high frequency adjustment, which it doesn't look like I'm actually using. This seems to be off here. So what I want to do is A/B one of these things on the group. So let's see if we can hear the one I'm using, and if not, I'll make it maybe a little bit more intense. So here's our vocals without our SPL. And then with. Without. With. I mean, when we're talking about mixing, it's going to be really subtle stuff. I don't know if everyone caught that through YouTube, but here we are. Now, let's see what happens if I make this a lot more intense, though. So let's add one more to the end of this group. So I'm going to drive this a lot. I'm going to pretty much max out these settings to really show you guys kind of how this plugin sounds, because it does a good job of avoiding distortion, right? When you think saturation or excitement, you think like if I drive this thing to max, it's going to give me just complete digital distortion, but this thing does a good job of avoiding that. So this bass adjustment is low end like sub, or lows like just right above sub. So for a vocal, I'm going to go this side. Skip the compressor, mid-tune, pick a frequency for your low boost, and then process is how much. Similarly on the right side, pick a frequency here, and then boost. And then stereo expansion, I'll just crank that up for no reason. So this is an obvious increase of the amplitude here. So try and, avoid, basing how this sounds off of the change in amplitude, but listen to how the vocal sounds different without. Then with.
might get upset and say some things we regret.
Right, it's not good because I pushed these things too far just for the demonstration, but you can hear that does a lot of really nice enhancement there. I can actually understand the words a lot better because the not the diphthongs. What's the opposite of diphthongs? The p-k-t, that stuff. You know, those things are, the sibilance is a lot more audible there. The level of the track is low. Yeah, this is a mixing project and I'm only playing individual tracks. Let me see what this looks like. Oh, there's no limiter at the end of this. That's my bad. I have a ton of headroom here for mixing and I didn't. Sorry. There we go. Thank you for letting me know that the level was low, John. I appreciate that. Okay, so there you go. So that's going to be some of my favorite vocal processing stuff. We'll talk more about what I was doing during the production phase in a moment. I do want to go through some of these sends and returns because you're going to see a lot of things I talked about and I use a lot. So here's Echo Boy, just being an echo. We talked about this. Doing a good job. We have our crystallizer being a psych delay, but I don't have my pitch adjustment here, so it's really just kind of being a chorusing effect for our vocal. We have another Echo Boy for our vocal. Just looks like what that is. And then we have a regular reverb. Now, this is something you've seen me talk about or use on stream, and I don't remember exactly which one of you it was, but reminded me that these guys don't go on sale. So this will not be part of the Black Friday deals, I assume, but these products are priced quite well. There's also some free stuff on the website. So Valhalla DSP is the group here, valhalladsp.com. I like this reverb a lot. I also like their frequency echo, which is free. I haven't really messed with their other tools because I have too many at this point, but for like a general reverb, I do like this one a lot. Not sure if Justin talked about this in his reverb stream. I wonder what he thought of it, if he did. So that's what we're rocking for our sends. And then if we look at our master, like, okay, don't close your eyes. Don't look at this. This is not a solid master chain. I think I was doing some things for live, like I was processing individual stems for live performance. So things going on here are maybe a little bit crazy. But there are some things that I would like to talk about. One, here we see the J37 again. It's really great. For things like the master, we have our alloy tool covering the air on our master. I have not found a de-esser that does this like this does, which is another reason why I'm like upset that you can't really get alloys easily anymore. Oxford inflator, I mean, this is one that you'll see almost any engineer talk about. And I have this in the wrong placement in the chain, but whatever. And I can't tell you what this does because Oxford won't tell us what it does because they don't want people copying their plugin and competing with it, right? This is kind of a special thing. I'll tell you what it's meant to do. It's meant to make your song sonically louder without really making the meter increase in value, right? Without really increasing the amplitude. So I'll tell you right now, it's probably a really subtle harmonic exciter, kind of like the SPL vitalizer tool we were looking at. But yeah, it's another one that you'll catch engineers using all the time just to get a little bit of extra oomph out of their tracks. Sounds amazing. You'll see my vitalizer. Here we are doing subtler stuff. We have a Neve channel strip that's just here to try and get a little bit more cleanliness out of the signal. Using these is a little bit rough, obviously, just because the interface is not modernized in any way, but I actually prefer this. The reason I prefer this is because a modernized channel strip or modernized interface oftentimes gives us things to use our eyes to rely on, right? Like when I'm looking at the Ableton EQ, I have all my visualizers and all these shapes. And it can cause you to not rely on your ears as much as you should be. And so using a tool like this, where the look of it actually has no impact on the way you're using it, is really going to force you to use your ears. We have the Vertigo mastering exciter. I have too much harmonic excitement going on here. Like I'm just saturating the crap out of my master. Oops, but it sounds good. So again, following my ears. Here's tape saturation. So like 90% of this stuff is a saturator apparently. And then we have Ozone doing what Ozone does minus the maximizer because I was bouncing these out for live performance stems. If I was, bouncing this out for real, we would have our maximizer here. So Ozone is cool. I was talking about this earlier. I don't like Master Assistant. I don't like how user-friendly this is becoming. They're taking away control from us, which is just ridiculous. Like it doesn't make sense. You shouldn't be removing features. You should be adding features. But here we are in this new world where we would prefer robots to do things for us on AI. But yeah, these individual modules still do a very good job for what they are. I haven't really decided to replace these in my chain yet. I haven't found an apt replacement for all of these things. So yeah, there you go. That's what we're using in this track. How much have you spent on VSTs? Okay, so I'm not gonna lie to you. I used to work at Guitar Center, and Guitar Center employees get a lot of NFTs, which stands for NFTs, NFRs. We have paid NFTs. Now we NFRs, not for resale, right? So the UAD plugins I didn't have to pay for. I had to buy the unit. I got a discount for being a Guitar Center. I had to buy the unit, but yeah, they put me on a program there. And honestly, being a teacher gives me similar things among other companies. So like the Arturia stuff is NFR because, we teach it and we're showing you guys, we're doing a little bit of free advertising for them, right? So I'll be fully transparent there. I don't spend nearly as much as it looks like I do. All my Wave stuff I bought on my own just because, their bundles are not as often on sale and they come with things I don't really need. So every now and then I'll just go and pick up an individual Waves plugin when I feel like I need one. However, yeah, the majority of my money is spent on hardware. So the physical things going on in my studio, less so on software. I guess Native Instruments, those guys get a little expensive. But yeah, it's not 5 digits yet. I don't think I've spent 5 digits on software, Megamite. The computer maybe. But anyway, so yeah, let's take a look at the list of stuff I have here. Acoustica, I'm not going to do any justice talking about, so just look at one of Justin's streams for those guys. Ample Sound, this is just a free little bass tool that I use for students sometimes. Antares is really great stuff for vocal processing. So if you're looking for like the T-Pain auto-tune effect, these guys, are one of the more commonly used tools for it, the auto-tune from these guys. But they also have this thing called Harmony Engine, which is the other thing that I find myself really enjoying. And this is how you get that sort of, this is going to be wrong because this is not the tool she used, but the Imogen Heap hide and seek sort of stacked vocal effect where you're singing one line and you're playing notes on a piano and it's pitching what you're singing to fill in the recording with harmonies of your own voice. It sounds very cool. Like you can do some really, really awesome stuff. So I do recommend taking a look at that. I'm not 100% sure how involved in Black Friday Antares is, but definitely worth kind of giving a peek at. Arturia here, I mentioned these guys before. They do like old analog synth models, so you'll see things like the Juno, the Jupiter, the Virus, the See-Me, the DX7, and they're really good models. And I really like Arturia as a company because they're responsive, they're receptive to feedback. Like if you sent them an email giving them, a good recommendation for an update to make on their plugin, they'll probably make it. Like they do listen and they pay attention. They're putting out updates on their stuff all the time. And so even though there's some compatibility issues here, like everyone I know who uses Arturia pretty consistently finds themselves crashing Ableton a lot, especially with Big Sur. So be wary of that. But when you do get it up and running perfectly, it's some really good stuff. It's really fun to experiment. And it's also cool because it gives you similar language to if you were to have these devices in your home, right? Buying a fully functioning DX7 from the old days is going to run you a huge amount of money. A CS80 from the old days that is like in high condition, that's going to be thousands and thousands of dollars. So might as well explore here first instead of maybe dropping the price of a car on one of these modular synths. So their V collection bundle is the one that would come with all this stuff. That's what I recommend. I do believe that they'll join the Black Friday shenanigans. So, always good there. Don't worry about Baby Audio. Don't worry about FL Studios. Isotope, I mentioned, that bundle is pretty amazing. We talked about a lot of these tools. Iris is a granular synthesizer. That will come with the bundle. It's very cool. A little tough to use, but very cool. Nectar is their vocal processing tool. It's not bad, but I don't like some of the modules. Like the Auto-Tune doesn't sound very good. The Harmonizer doesn't sound very good. The Saturator doesn't sound very good, in my opinion. Neutron, it's their new version of Alloy. I like Alloy better, but Neutron's fine, I guess. Ozone is their mastering maximizer, like final tool. This also has your dither in it if you want to use dithering from these guys, which is pretty solid. RX, which was mentioned in the chat, also really solid. Ignore tonal balance control. So Native Instruments, we got to talk about Native Instruments because these guys are a really big company. They do a lot of stuff. They always have random sales going. I don't think they've necessarily started their Black Friday thing yet, but I gotta believe they're going to be doing something, if not already. And they're all over the place, right? Like you could be fully acoustic producer and this stuff could be, all you use. Or if you're doing like a lot of scoring, this could be a really great way to just have some nice orchestral sounds to compose with and then, translate to sheet music or, hand over to someone to record a band. But there's a lot of stuff on their website, and it can be really hard to kind of pick through it and figure out what's worth it and what's not worth it. And so really what I'll say is any of their own standalone synthesizers and things are solid. We have Absinthe 5, that's their kind of like wacky modular synthesizers, very cool. Battery 4 is like their drum samplers, very cool. Some audio effects are all right. FM8 is their operator tool, their FM synthesizer, comes with 8 oscillators, it's fantastic. Guitar Rig 6, guitar pedal effects processing unit. Contact is their multi-tool that houses other libraries of sounds that you can use. Massive and Massive X are their massive synthesizers that you can use. Reactor 6 is their modulator builder. So it's kind of like you can build your own audio effects and also synthesizers, but it comes with synthesizers to use. Things like Razor, Prism, things like that. Very nice. And Super 8, I think, is a new one. This is kind of like an old school style synthesizer. I haven't really messed with it much. These are all great. I think they're worth the money. You can experiment with them. They're very massive tools, so you can get a lot out of them. Here's where Native Instruments starts to lose me pretty heavily. And I'm going to open up Contact here. And I have this stuff because I recently upgraded to the Complete 13 bundle. But here's Contact. We have a bunch of individual instruments, and these can be really fantastic. Like sometimes they're like really creative things, like the xylophone toy collection. Ouch. And some of these things are meant to simulate, a acoustic instrument in a way that is as, accurate as possible. Like we have this gamelan. Not their best effort. But some of these are really, really fantastic. Like this Rickenbacker bass, like this thing sounds amazing. And you have a bunch of amp models and a lot of things you can do. Like it sounds great. So here's where they lose me. They sell these like genre-based sound packs for Contact. They always have these like really kitschy names like Play Series Selection, Modular Icons, Cloud Supply. And look what these end up being. We essentially have a preset browser with some knobs at the bottom that we can use to make some changes here. Now, yeah, like I can go into the settings, we can go and maybe make a little bit of changes to how this works, we get some effects, but this is not really a synthesizer. This is a preset browser, and there's not very many presets here, I'm not gonna lie. Like it's not the biggest list for what this is. And essentially, if you don't find instruments you like from this list here, it's a useless tool for you. You can't go in and really make the drastic changes you would need to get a use out of this. So I'm going to go out on a limb, and maybe a little bit of offense intended, I find all of these completely useless. I wouldn't recommend anyone spend the money to buy their pre-made Play Series instruments. Now, the one argument that I suppose could be made for this is live performance. Like if you want a very kind of simple, fully formed instrument to play that doesn't hog a lot of CPU, this might be your way around that, but I'm sorry, it's not that big a deal. It's not that hard to like write your own synths. So essentially we have two different preset browsers. We have like an instrument on the left and we have a texture on the right. And they all end up sounding very similar. So I don't know, like if you like these or if you use these, I really don't mean to insult you. Like I'm not trying to sound really harsh there. We're talking about software, right? Like it doesn't cost them all that much money to distribute. For something like this, it doesn't cost them all that much money to produce, and so it feels very lazy to me. I think there are much better options out there for you than that, even within Contact itself. Like some of the stuff is really, really amazing, including their just regular factory library. It's really, really underrated. It's full of stuff sounds really great, worth checking out. So I do love Native Instruments. Their bundles are worth it. So if you are looking to get into it, then maybe Complete is really the way to go, even though it's going to come with a lot of this crap that I think is kind of useless. However, that's how they do their business. So there you go. That's what you get when you're dealing with Native Instruments. That's my little spiel. I don't necessarily see them sponsoring me anytime soon. I didn't necessarily leave a good taste in my mouth, but that's all right. Slate's pretty cool. They're doing analog modeling stuff now, kind of like a lot of other groups like Waves and Universal Audio. I've heard good things from my friends. I've heard some issues with compatibility with Slate as well, so just be wary about that. Sonomus makes some really cool console channel emulation, and this is a different way of mixing in Ableton, because you can actually put one of these channels on each track, put the bus on the master, and you can kind of do mixing directly from our bus over here. So they sell a variety of different styles of channel depending on, what you like, the British, the German, the US, the Neve, the et cetera, et cetera. So those are very cool. Sound toys we talked about. Omnisphere I don't think really goes on sale from them. However, they sell their product physically in stores still. So if you were to like walk into a Guitar Center, you can take advantage usually of their Black Friday sale to buy Omnisphere. I know Omnisphere is one that a lot of people like really want, but that price tag just kind of keeps driving them away. So if you're one of them, maybe this would be your opportunity to take a look at it. For those of us who don't know what Omnisphere is, it is Slate did just go subscription, although I do believe you can still buy licenses. I might be wrong. I don't use Slate, so I'm not the one to talk about it there, but I know they are really trying to get heavily involved in the like analog modeling world, kind of like a lot of other people. So Omnisphere is a massive multi-tool. It's got like everything. Kind of think of like a Nexus or I don't even know. Like, there are not very many other tools that are this expansive. It's got endless amounts of acoustic modeled sounds. It's got plenty of synthesizer options here. So things you would expect. However, what I will note is we have a list along the top, 1 through 8. This is the amount of individual instances of operator of Omnisphere you can run at any point in time. And then within each one of these, there is 4 panels for either a oscillator or a sample. So do the math there. That's 32 individual oscillators or samples that get their own full sets of effects and panels and tabs. Like, that's wild. There's an insane amount of envelopes to choose from. Like, this is really intense. And there's also, look at this massive list of presets. They're all very, very good. So many people just buy Omnisphere purely for the presets and never design their own sounds in this. However, it's very fantastic. So whatever happened to Trillion? Do they still offer that one? If I'm not mistaken, the way that works these days is Trillion and the Keyscape, their piano version of it, they function as like modules for Omnisphere. So you buy them, you download them, and then when you open Omnisphere, you can use them from there. I don't think they're their own like VSTs that you would drag onto a track. I think they all kind of operate via Omnisphere here. I might be wrong about that though. So again, don't fully quote me on everything here, but that's my experience with them. But Trillion's still around. That's like their strings and bass, right? It's either bass or strings. I can't remember. Anyway, so Omnisphere is hugely popular. Also, if we look at their effects list, this is more effects than Ableton comes with. Honestly, this is almost more effects than any DAW comes with, just built into it. So it's huge, right? Like, you could stick with this and have absolutely nothing else and you'd be totally fine. If they made an Omnisphere FX version, then you would be pretty much set right across the board. But a little expensive, so maybe keep an eye on ways to achieve that one. I have Serum. So you can, I don't know if they're doing Black Friday deals. I would kind of be surprised if Serum goes on sale. There's so many ways to access Serum in a way that is, affordable for most people. So I don't know if I'd expect to see that, but maybe keep an eye on it. I don't use it enough to talk about it. And now Waves. Waves is something I definitely wanted to save for last because they're the big boys, right? They have so many tools. Like, there's so many. It's insane. And they're all very different from each other. There are some repeats here. But there are a couple that I really want to note the value of because they really have at least really, really helped me in my life. I know we haven't really played much audio today. I really apologize for that, but this is an important conversation we're having, right? So, the Abbey Road stuff they release is all pretty good. The saturated we've looked at. They have a couple of reverb units, the chambers and the plates. This is a compressor. Yeah. And so this stuff works, quite well. I don't know how well it's modeled because I've never been to Abbey Roads. But you can kind of do your own little assumption and research there. They have a multi-tool for mastering as well, which is quite nice. It comes with a variety of things, right? Like, we have our like a preamp, we have an EQ, limiter, filter that you can turn on and use individual units for, or use them all for your mixing mastering. But these are by choice. If you're writing music that likes, really analog sounding warmth, then this can be really good for you. But if you're doing like heavy EDM stuff, I'm not 100% sure if you're going to be as pleased with this. Skipping over some of these things that I just got via a bundle or as a free plugin, not 100% sure. The CLA stuff. So I think a lot of people, like, the CLA stuff is a little polarizing because I think a lot of people don't like like sound goodizers, essentially, tools that you don't have very much control over, right? Maybe it's like one or two knobs that just do a specific thing. I have no problem with these things. I have no problem with things that save you time and still sound good, man. Like at the end of the day, use your ears. If you like the sound of it, who cares if it's a one knob? Like I'm not gonna ask you that question when you show me your song on Spotify. I'm not gonna be like, did you use any plugins that only have one knob? I don't like it anymore. Like that's crazy. You know what I mean? Like who cares if it sounds good? So if we look at one of these CLA multi effects, vocals is the one that I would say really kind of shines. Guitars is pretty good too. What we get is a few things. We get these bars in the middle that represent all the different multi effects. However, if I were to turn all of these off, which I can do by clicking on the name here at the top, this still functions like a preamp. This is still going to change the sound of the audio just by existing. Let's see if we can hear it. It's going to be real subtle, but...
Cause making up ain't hard to do.
That's with. Here's without.
Cause making up ain't hard to do.
With again.
Cause making up ain't hard to do.
Namely, it's just like a little louder for the most part. But this does kind of have this built-in vocal style digital preamp going on here, which just enhances the sound a little bit. But then we also have a low frequency, so I can either boost or reduce the low frequencies in her voice, and I can switch between different EQ positions, right? So sub, lower, which is lows, or like maybe lower mids, which is upper. And then we have the same thing for treble, bite, which is probably like upper mids, top, which is highs, and then roof, which is the air, something like above 10K. We have a compressor here with three different essentially shape options, and I like push. I don't necessarily use this compressor very often because that's something I would definitely prefer to have more control over, so maybe we skip that one here. A reverb tool, I like tight. It sounds pretty good. I don't use the other ones as much because once again, a reverb is an instance where you might want to have a little bit more control than this. However, a slap delay, that's pretty standard. I don't really need to worry about that too much. And then we have a stereoizer that's a little bit geared towards vocals. So this is going to help you avoid any sort of phasing going on in your vocal track. So now, before and after.
Cause making up ain't hard to do.
With.
Cause making up ain't hard to do.
Without.
Cause making up ain't hard to do.
And with.
The second I'm in front of you.
Right, so I did drive the high end a little bit too much, but you can hear that does quite a bit to the voice, even though it doesn't really look like we had much going on here. I turned the reverb and the slap delay down as much as I could. We do have a little bit of stereoizing going on, but the EQ curves are barely being adjusted, and our compressor is not being used at all. So for quick processes, like if I'm in a studio with somebody who's only in town for a couple of days, maybe have like 5 hours in the studio to get something going, I'm definitely going to be using these tools. I'm not going to sit there and make them wait for me to go through the engineering side of things and make them sound great via an hour of tweaking tools. Like I would rather them just sound good enough to move forward and keep everyone inspired and creating, right? So I really do enjoy these tools, and oftentimes, I'll tell you right now, even if they plan on being temporary sometimes, like you put them on the vocal track just to make it sound pretty good to keep working, you might end up keeping it. Like I find myself keeping a lot of these multi-tools a lot and just kind of adding more to them to kind of help balance what they maybe don't do entirely. So there you go. Waves has a de-esser. If you don't have a de-esser yet, this is an affordable one, so definitely get yourself a de-esser. Even if you're not working with a lot of vocal stuff, these are really, really handy tools for cleaning up drums, cleaning up harsh instruments. It's just a really important thing to have around, so Waves has got one for you as well. The Waves doubler is great. I do very much enjoy the way that this doubler sounds. There's a million doublers out there that you can use, but the Waves doubler gives you a lot of control over the actual extra voices being generated here. I'm not going to really take the time to build a preset for you guys here, but that's definitely one to look at. They also have one that gives you extra doubles. Waves is now getting into... Oh, that's weird. I can replace my track. Waves is now getting into analog modeled instruments. So this is an electric piano. I have no idea where the thing just went, but... Oh, dear. Come on. It's okay. What the? That thing has songs in it? I had no idea. All right, so the acoustic instruments or the analog models here are okay. Definitely not so bad. But maybe not super important. F6 is their dynamic EQ. I do recommend getting yourself a dynamic EQ if you don't have one yet. There's a lot of options out there. Some of them are targeting different types of uses than others. Like you have the Baby Smooth operator you might have seen in my list. You have the Oak Sound Soothe 2, which is the better version. But those aren't necessarily the exact same thing as what we've got going on here. A dynamic EQ is essentially an EQ of the parametric kind usually, except these adjustments and these shapes can be set to a compressor, right? So essentially you can say, if the track is louder, make the duck stronger. If the track is quieter, don't duck it nearly as much. So you can really use this kind of like, a de-esser. It's kind of like a much more specific de-esser than what a de-esser does, because the de-esser just gives you a range. This gives you a very controllable filter shape that you can kind of use to move around. So this is a really user-friendly dynamic EQ. So if you don't have one yet, I would recommend it. It's good. Their guitar processing units are okay. Oh yeah, so Todila says Pro Q3 for the win. You're not going to catch me using any FabFilter stuff here because I haven't spent the dough yet. I don't torrent plugins. I don't crack them. I don't do it. So I don't have it. Nova for the cheap. Nova's free, right? Nova's great. I actually do recommend my students pick up Nova for a dynamic EQ if they don't want to spend the money. So good shout there. Simple. Anyway, so yeah, FabFilter I highly recommend. They're amazing digital tools, but the bundle's like $1,000. And so, you got to deal with that. I don't know if they're doing a Black Friday thing. I've been checking like every day. So we'll see. Maybe they're doing it right now. Maybe they started today and I just have no idea. So I do have to be wrapping this up pretty soon, which is fine because we are almost at the end of this list here. The hybrid tools, the H reverb, H compressor, these are good. I do like them. No problem. The limiters coming from Waves are a little old school, so they work quite well, but maybe a little bit out of date, like the L1. Maserati, same sort of deal as the CLA stuff. So it's kind of like a multi-tool geared towards specific things, like B72s for basses, DRM is for drums, GRP is a group, so generally vocals, I think. GTI is guitar, HMX is for harmonies, I guess, more vocal stuff, VX is for Vox. I like these, but they're a little bit harsh. And so if you're looking for that like really cutting sound, these are great. Otherwise, the CLA ones are much softer. Maserati may be a little bit better for heavier electronic processes. You have the NLS bus. This thing is cool. Well, not that one, the channel. Because it gives you the same sort of like console emulation as this Sonomus stuff does, like that Brixton bus that I showed you, except it's a little easier to use. Now, here's the MVP of Waves, period, NS1. Now, there's not much to talk about here. It's one knob, and it's labeled quite well. It's the NS1 noise suppressor, but this thing is absolutely amazing. Like, you can spend thousands of dollars on RX9 Advanced AI Edition Machine Learning Pro, and this thing will still just beat it with one knob increase of 10. You just crank this thing up a little bit, and it siphons out all the noise and the background noisy channel recording stuff you have. It's a smart noise suppressor. This is not just like a basic gate tool. This is actually paying attention to your signal and making active decisions based on what it's picking up here. And the beauty of this thing is if you're using this to just try and get rid of like a hiss from like a noisy plugin you're using, or maybe you have like recording hiss coming from a microphone, you don't even need to turn this knob. You just put NS1 on the thing, leave it at 0, it will do its job. So this is my favorite tool from Waves. Like, I think it's always $30. Like, it's one of their most affordable, most accessible tools, and it's absolutely amazing. Another Desert Island plugin right here, like I would never be able to deal with not having this. Do I ever use anything from Melda? They do like the M yada this, M yada that, right? I do like a lot of their stuff. Like I use the M vibrato because that's a really cool vibrato tool, although Ableton did just add a lot of stuff that kind of replaces the Melda things. I don't know if they have a Black Friday discount going. However, yeah, I do think their stuff is worthy for sure. I think it's great. Super affordable and super high quality for what it is. The oscilloscope is the one I use as well. Is really nice oscilloscope. Just makes it easier for me to kind of demonstrate synthesis when I'm doing those types of things. So yeah, Melda's a great option. Kilohertz as well is like our EDM bundle that a lot of EDM guys like. I don't use it myself, but maybe take a look at that. So yeah, NS1 though, get yourself NS1. I mean, like, come on, you have to have NS1. It's so important. If you're looking for a really, really heavy sort of like guitar style compressor, what happened to it? Where'd it go? Oh yeah, the Renaissance series stuff is really good. This is really good for like really heavy, strong processing effects. So they have one for vocals, they have a general compressor. I think this is a compressor mainly geared towards guitars. Like this is kind of like, raising the floor of a guitar, but very, very strong, and it avoids distortion quite well. Like you get a lot of oomph out of these. Looks like they got 50% off until the 30th of November. No problem. It's easy. So let me see, is there anything else that I left out? Oh yeah, the S1. S1 is really nice for mixing. You can kind of just very quickly deal with some strange stereo field issues you might have in your song. We can adjust the width, we can adjust the asymmetry of the room, we can adjust the rotation of the actual sound. So we can make very specific stereo changes to the signal. It's not just like a left, right, or a stereo enhance like you'd catch on like a utility tool. Sound shifter is actually a really fantastic creative pitch shifter because it sounds just unique. It doesn't sound like warping, doesn't sound like pitching things down and warping. It doesn't sound like using any other algorithm to pitch things around. So I actually do like sound shifter a lot. I will do a small demonstration on that one at the end if we have time. King's Mic is really, really cool old school microphone models. These do actually sound really great. I'm always very impressed, but they need to be followed up with an EQ to kind of fix the messed up frequency balance that it gives you. So this plus an EQ can get you some really, really nice old school stuff. And that's it. So let me talk about this sound shifter here. If we go to our drums, that's what they sound like normally. We're gonna put our sound shifter on this and pitch these down a little bit, and think like Playboy Cardi, Migos, Travis Scott rap stuff. So I know it's weird, right? It's like not the same thing as pitching this down via Ableton warping or some other pitch shifter like Alter Boy. Like this is definitely doing a unique algorithm to this to make this sound kind of strange. And for those like really oddly like resampled trap drum effects, they're using this. Like this is the tool they use to get that strange sort of like swooped in effect, almost like the transient got chopped from these things and you have this kind of like thing swooping into the actual transient. Definitely an interesting effect, but just unique, like if you don't like it, then don't worry about it, but there's a million ways to pitch your stuff up and down, but none of them sound quite like this. Cool. So that's it. That's gonna be it for me today. An honorable mention that I don't have downloaded this computer because it's kind of new is Paul Stretch. If you search the word Paul and then the word stretch into Google, you will find what I'm talking about. Essentially I don't even think it was created for like music, but essentially what it is an algorithm that allows you to stretch audio in a clean manner up to like 1 trillion years long. You could take a 3-minute piece of audio and make it the length of 3 trillion years via this algorithm. And of course, at that point, it sounds like a frozen reverb. It just sounds like the same tone forever. But you don't need to go that far with the stretch. So maybe you take an 8-minute recording of crickets and you stretch it to like 3 hours, and then you take a little bit of the middle parts. Like you've seen, I'm sure, the YouTube videos, Justin Bieber slowed down 800 times, or crickets slowed down 800 times, sounds like violins. They're using the Paul Stretch tool to accomplish that. So really, really cool sound design tool for like drones, ambiances, pads, pretty much transition effects, like pretty much anything. You can get some really cool effects out of that. So maybe one day in a future stream, we'll break that one down and maybe design kind of a song around it. But otherwise, for now, this is where I'm going to let you go. I'm sorry I just rambled, but again, we got Black Friday coming up. The plugin world is a bit of a big one, so I just wanted to chat a little bit about what I like to use, what some of your options out there are. Learning what you guys like to see and what you guys like to use. I'm honestly like, you guys seem to be doing some good research. None of you mentioned anything that I would stay away from. So yeah, awesome guys. So yeah, without further ado, I'm just going to switch on over to our outro screen. I'll hang out and chat like I always do, answer some questions if you got any, but otherwise I will catch you next time.